Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be finishing our read through of this magazine, The Atlas of the Ancient World. Now, in this series, I don't read the segments ahead of time, so we get to explore it for the first time together. So it's a little more off the cuff. I say things that I would normally edit out, and I make mistakes, all of that kind of stuff. So you really get to see just like my raw reactions to things. You guys really seem to enjoy that, and it's like the easiest videos for me to film, so I don't have to do any prep work, except that I read the titles of things so that I can plan out what I'm going to talk about. But tonight's a little different because we're going to read this whole last chapter, New World's Young Civilizations. And that's because this covers like North America, Central America, Africa, Oceania. Like it covers all of the areas we didn't talk about previously. And from what I can see, because I haven't read it, from what I can see, the segments are like way too short to split them into videos. They'd be like 10, 15-minute videos. So I thought, why don't we just do one big video? Why don't we just combine them all into one long video, like the Great Wall of China's long. One long video. So let's just jump right into it. Let's see, page 90. Can you believe it? We've gone that far. We're going to finish this today. Say goodbye to the magazine. We already did Greece. And I will be getting a new map book. I showed the one that I want on live. I checked it out from the library. It's awesome, so I have to buy it. So I'm not constantly checking it out from the library. I'm going to buy my own copy. And that series will begin probably in like mid-April if all goes well. So look forward to that. But let's finish this magazine. Let's read all this since we're going to read the whole chapter. New World's Young Civilizations. I'm going to use this end. When we look at early civilizations, our spotlight shines most brightly on those that left behind an extensive readable record or whose influence spread widely along military or trade routes. But young civilizations with more mysterious histories have developed around the world at different times, from the far-traveling cultures of Oceania to the traders of West Africa, to the megalith builders of northern Europe. Before laborers ever built pyramids in Egypt, skilled seafarers were mastering the waves of the Pacific Ocean. Humans migrated to the landmass of Australia and New Guinea and nearby islands around 50,000 BCE, arriving from Southeast Asia in simple boats outfitted with sails. Around 8000 BCE, rising seas caused by a warming climate separated Australia and New Guinea. Shortly after, Austronesian seafarers began exploring and trading along the northern coast of New Guinea. They sailed the open ocean in outrigger canoes, and in succeeding waves of discovery, they settled a host of Pacific islands, reaching New Zealand by 700 CE. As early as 500 BCE, people of the Nok culture in what is now Nigeria were forging implements and sculpting expressive human and animal figures in clay. Around the 4th century CE, Malays from Indonesia sailed west across the Indian Ocean and colonized Madagascar, where they introduced bananas and provided food surpluses that helped sustain populous societies in sub-Saharan Africa. Kingdoms sprang up in West Africa that eventually grew rich and powerful on the trade in gold, ivory, and other precious goods along the Niger and Senegal rivers. In the misty forests of northern Europe, ancient Celtic and Germanic cultures were changed, but not eradicated by Roman settlement. Celtic culture originated around 1000 BCE along the upper Danube River in Central Europe. With the introduction around 750 BCE of ironworking, a skill that originated in the Middle East, Celtic communities gained an edge in trade and war. Celtic culture spread across present-day Germany and France to northern Spain and the British Isles. Christianity, moving in from the south, intermixed in some places with the Nordic gods of Viking invaders as the Middle Ages began. In North America, the cultivation of corn spread northward from Mexico about 9,000 years ago, allowing hunter-gatherers to begin settling down and building complex societies. In South America, the Moche of Peru carried out massive irrigation projects and disseminated their culture through warfare, trade, and craft. By the 1st century CE in Mesoamerica, great cities arose in central Mexico, including Tula, home of the Toltec warrior statues we see here. The inhabitants traded with the Maya, who lived around the Yucatan Peninsula and were divided, like the Greeks, into rival city-states. These American cultures developed a multitude of distinctive art styles and systems of government, all overturned when the first Europeans arrived on their shores. So yeah, these are Toltec statues. Isn't that beautiful? They're like big columns. Very neat. It's like a big, maybe outdoor worship area. What does this say? These then are the first words, the first speech. That's by Popova from the Quiche Maya sacred book. Very nice. So starting in Oceania. Let's see what this says. The people of ancient Oceania, a term that encompasses Papua New Guinea, Australia, New Zealand, and Polynesian islands, were the boldest seafarers the world had ever known. From their homelands in Southeast Asia, they sailed with families and livestock across thousands of miles of Pacific waters, beginning roughly in 2000 BCE. Over here it shows non-Medal in Pompeii. I wonder if it'll talk about non-Medal, because non-Medal's pretty awesome. A second round of expansion took them to Hawaii by about 300 CE. Let's look at this map and figure it out. So, number 1 says extent of early coastal settlement by 30,000 BCE. So we've got Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, around Papua New Guinea, the Solomons, then Australia. And nothing past that. It's pretty much like open ocean at that point. So number 2 is the limit of the Lapita colonization around 800 BCE. So in the blue it looks like they sailed out to New Caledonia, Vanuatu, the Santa Cruz Islands, to Tonga, Fiji, Samoa. Sounds about right. Lapita, from what I understand, was the culture that came up with the whole concept of like outriggers and navigating by the stars and all the stuff you see in Moana. Number 3 is the Polynesian settlement before 1000 CE. Yes, I see. 1000 CE. So all of this area here, we got the Marquesas, Tuamotu, in French Polynesia, the Society Islands, the Cook Islands over here, which we're actually going to in a couple weeks on my channel, the Cook Islands. And then it looks like we spread out to other places. By 12 to 300 CE, we hit New Zealand. 1000 CE, we just head out this way to who knows where, I guess Chile. 900 to 1200 CE is Easter Island, or Isla de Pascua, or Rapa Nui, which is part of Chile. Then 800 to 1000 we get to Hawaii, which is part of the USA. And then we also just head out here. What island is this? What is that island? Is that the No, that's the Galapagos. I don't know. What island is that? Is that, I was about to say Pitcairn, but Pitcairn famously wasn't inhabited at this time. I don't know. Let's see what this box says up here. It says, Polynesian journeys. Oh, it talks about the map. I should have read this first. The timing of Polynesian migration remains a matter of scholarly debate, but it is clear that Asian seafarers moved out into the Pacific in two waves. The Lapita people may have been the primary ocean settlers. They burst out eastward from New Guinea perhaps 4,000 years ago, and within a few centuries reached Tonga and Samoa. After a pause of 1,000 years, their Polynesian descendants pushed even farther. Some archaeologists believe they made it as far as South American shores. Didn't Tor Heyerdahl prove that that was possible? I think so. But here's Nanamadal. That's on Pohnpei, which is right up here in Micronesia. Pohnpei. We're going to be going to Chuuk pretty soon over here. Not Pohnpei, sadly, but Nanamadal is, I guess, technically a megalith. It stacked rocks to create this huge structure here, and it was only recently discovered. It's pretty cool. There's not a lot of megaliths out here. We've got Easter Island, that's about it, and now we have Nanamadal. I say recently discovered, but I think it was recently realized. That's what it was. Left behind, Wandjina paintings. Some 40,000 years ago, when Neanderthals still roamed Europe, the peopling of Australia was well underway. Migrants from the north adapted well to the new island and developed the longest continuous cultural history in the world. They never used metals or pottery and never developed the bow and arrow or the wheel, yet their culture was rich in myth and art. At some sacred sites, they believed ancestors from the Dreamtime, a timeless realm, came to rest and transformed themselves into images on rocks. Some of these beings, known as Wandjina, are depicted in dramatic rock paintings we can see here, in the Kimberley region of northwest Australia. Perhaps 4,000 years old, the figures represent cloud and rain spirits. The stripes and broad bands of color around their heads may symbolize stormy weather. Direct descendants regularly retouch the art to ensure continuity. It's a little eerie, their big eyes and open mouths like that. It looks like if it was weather, I would guess this would be like wind. Like when you hear the wind blowing and it sounds like a person, They got like a big wallaby here. It's pretty cool. That's a great rock drawing. We had a huge windstorm 2 days ago. And it was pretty intense. The whole house was shaking. One of my neighbor's houses, the tree fell and didn't smash their whole house, but part of it. And now it's snowing. Gosh, I almost want to go over there with some warm food, some soup or something. Help them keep warm in the snow. My goodness. But anyway. Yeah. They're a little, I don't know. They are meant to be spirits, so they're not supposed to be completely, calm and relaxing to look at. But then again, Dreamtime stories are unknown to people outside the culture. This is a closed culture. We are not meant to know anything unless you're Aboriginal. We're not meant to know, Australian Aboriginal, I should say. We're not meant to know any of what these meanings actually are. We're not supposed to know really any of the details of the stories or anything. It's all very part of their culture and not meant to be shared to outsiders. So we can only surmise. But yeah, I would guess this would be like a cloud. If we know that it's weather related, I would say this would be like a cloud. Maybe like when the sun comes out from behind a cloud and you can see all the rays bursting. That would be my guess. But I don't know, these are a little scary looking to me, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to come across these guys in a dark alley, Anyway, left behind Easter Island's Moai. Speaking speaking of megaliths. Many things about Easter Island remain mysterious, including the date when far-traveling Polynesian explorers reached the land they called Rapa Nui. Sometime between about 300 and 1200 CE, seafarers settled the island and established a sophisticated agricultural and fishing society. Around 1200, the Rapa Nui people began erecting giant stone monoliths known as moai to represent sacred chiefs and gods. Although many people think of them as the Easter Island heads, they are in fact full figures with outsize heads. Oh my gosh. Alright, that squeaking is it scared me. I'll probably cut that down a little bit. The cats, at least Russell, and then he taught Bonnie, they've learned how to open cabinets, and my bathroom cabinet is really squeaky. So now there's a cat running around in the bathroom cabinet. It's probably Bonnie. Sorry about that. That creeped me out. It's a little scary. Where were we? They are in fact full figures with oversized heads. The first to be photographed were buried to the shoulders in the earth. Carved from volcanic rock without the aid of metal tools, some moai were as tall as 40 feet and weighed up to 80 tons. Of the 887, gosh, I would have guessed maybe like 200 or 300, 887 created. About half remain in the quarry in which they were carved, left behind for reasons unknown. All were standing when the first European arrived in 1722, but interclan warfare toppled them by the 19th century. Efforts are ongoing to preserve and protect the moai. There's a quote here that says, "We know the truth, the statues walked." That was Surituki, an Easter Island guide. So yeah, one of the mysteries is how did they get these statues from the quarry, because they're all on the edges of the island, right? How did they get them there? Well, the legend says that they got up and walked. Like the quote says, it was probably a log pulley system of some kind, but if the ancients say they walked, then they walked. Look at this pretty picture with all the stars. Very, very pretty. I remember Ghost Adventures did an episode here. It was like one of their worst episodes, and that show is garbage. It started really strong. Now it's just trash, but the cracks in that show were appearing when they like went here and tried to do ghost investigations, and they came up with like absolutely nothing. Most of their episodes are, but that one was pretty bad. Moving on to Mesoamerica. Let's see what this says. Originating in small farming villages, the first complex civilization in Mesoamerica began around 1200 BCE along rivers flowing into the Gulf of Mexico. Its people were known as the Olmec, which in later Mesoamerican languages meant dwellers in the land of rubber, after the many rubber trees in the area. Olmec society had all the hallmarks of other early civilizations. Merchants traded, artisans fashioned jewelry from jade, bone, and shell, and scribes recorded historical events in pictographs known as glyphs. A succession of cultures followed in central Mexico. Among them were the pyramid builders of Teotihuacan in the Valley of Mexico. At its height, around 400 CE, the city was one of the largest in the world and the hub of a trade network throughout Mesoamerica. Its success inspired the Toltec, who rose to power in the 10th century. Look at these pyramids here, like big platforms up top. Pretty amazing in Teotihuacan. This looks like a big pyramid too. It really mirrors this mountain in the background. What if that was one big pyramid? It is not. It is a mountain. Really beautiful. Look at all the people. There's a big tour group up there. Wow. That is something. Like, sorry Egypt, but my favorite pyramids are the Mayan ones in Mexico and Guatemala. Sorry Egypt. Actually, probably Sudan is my favorite pyramids. Oh, which ones do I like more? Mayan or Meroe? That's a problem for another day. Left behind, ball games. Mesoamerican cultures took their ball games very seriously. Beginning with the Olmec civilization, the game pitted two small teams against each other in a sunken ball court. Each team vied to propel a rubber ball, you can see here, across the court without using their hands. The balls were heavy, weighing up to 8 or 9 pounds, and despite wearing helmets and pads, players were often injured. Yeah, that's like a bowling ball weight, my goodness. In fact, some artwork suggests that the losing teams were executed. Perhaps as remarkable as the bloodthirsty nature of the games is the fact that these cultures could produce rubber balls at all. Rubber is made from latex, the sap of a rubber tree, but untreated, it becomes solid and brittle. More than 3,000 years before modern scientists discovered vulcanization, Mesoamerican inventors discovered a way to mix latex with juice from morning glory vines to produce stable, bouncy balls. That's amazing. That is really, really cool. All right, let's look at this map here. Let's actually read the box before we look at the map. The Toltec Empire. The first great empire in Mexico was forged by the warlike Toltec beginning around 1000 CE. Their origins are obscure. According to one Aztec account, they destroyed the city of Teotihuacan. Another possibility is that they were refugees from Teotihuacan who rebuilt in the same location. Toltec power may have extended as far as the Yucatan Peninsula. Though their empire was smaller than that of the later Aztec, they served as models for that fierce society. So the Toltec Empire is in this peachy orange here. All throughout here you can see Tula's right there, and Tolancinco is right there. The influx of Toltecs around the 900s is in red. They came from here and here. Looks like near La Quemada and El Teul. We've also got over here. Then I think that's it. The others are Toltec migration, circa 980 to 1200. So we've got migration out across the Gulf of Mexico into the Yucatan. You can see Chichen Itza there. And overland as well. And then down into Central America, up the Yucatan here as well. Yeah, spreading out, looks like south and then southeast up the Yucatan there. Interesting. Yeah, I think of like Toltec as like very centralized. I don't really think of them as being very spread out. So that's pretty cool. We got another map. Let's see this one. Let's read the caption first. The Maya. Maya civilization began as early as 1800 BCE, but flourished around the Yucatan Peninsula in what is known as its classic period, from 205 to 900 CE. Power was scattered among dozens of regional capitals, including Tikal in Guatemala, Calakmul and Palenque in Mexico, Caracol in Belize, and Copan in Honduras. Warfare among the city-states was constant and may have contributed to the collapse of Mayan culture in the 10th century. So all of this yellow here is the Maya region. It's pretty much the entire Yucatan there, all the way out to the Pacific Ocean coast, throughout here. And all of these little pyramids are archaeological sites, so we can see the famous ones, Chichen Itza. We can see Tulum is pretty cool. I'm just going to point out the ones I know. Altan Ha. Sorry, I'm like leaning in. I'm not near the mic. I'm like leaning into this map. We have Calakmul. We have Palenque, I mentioned. We have, did I say Caracol? There's Caracol. I don't really know about the ones on the Pacific coast. I didn't even know there were on the, but I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? There's Copan. Let's look over here. Well, there's San Luis Potosi, but I didn't know that there's I guess that makes sense. There are Mayans there. Monte Alban, that's a great one. But yeah, there's too many to count. They're all over the place. Let's see. See if I have heard of any more. Did I say Calakmul? There's Calakmul. There's Tikal. You can't forget Tikal. Tikal is probably the most important one. Let's be real. That's the big one besides Chichen Itza. I think Chichen Itza has the biggest pyramid, but Tikal was the capital. That was like the most important area, at least at its height, right? Around the 700s, 800s. Here's Quetzalcoatl. Also, some Nahuatl speakers have commented on my channel being like, that's not how it's actually pronounced. You know, like we say axolotl, and they're saying actually axolotl is pronounced like this. But I speak English, and in English it's pronounced axolotl. I wish I was good at Nahuatl because it's such a tingly language. It's so nice to hear. It's perfect for ASMR, so I wish I was better at it. But there's a lot of Nahuatl words that have jumped into English, so I'm pronouncing them the English way. Kind of the same thing in Madagascar. And it's like I always say, we say Paris, we don't say Paris, right? If we said, man, I can't wait to visit Paris this summer. Don't visit Paris in the summer. This winter, people would look at you funny. Like, why did you say it like that? Like, so I'm pronouncing Nahuatl as they're pronounced in English, and it's Quetzalcoatl in English. So get that out the way. I know it's pronounced different, and I have mad respect if you know how to pronounce Nahuatl, but I don't know. I'm just an English speaker. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was a god with particular significance for successive Mesoamerican cultures. At right is the Aztec depiction, and here is a pre-Toltec stela showing his birth, coming out of this beast. Looks like teeth up there, and he's poking out like, anyway, he looks very uncomfortable. The people of Teotihuacan saw him as an earth god, but the Toltec associated him with the planet Venus. The legendary figure is thought to have influenced Toltec kings, who may have adopted his name. It's believed that a ruler named Quetzalcoatl was ousted by a rival and fled eastward to the Yucatan Peninsula. In one legend, Quetzalcoatl eventually disappeared over the eastern horizon on a raft made of snakes. The Aztec believed that he would return in the year known as One Reed in the Aztec ritual calendar. When Spanish explorer Hernan Cortez arrived from the east in that year, 1519, that's crazy, Aztec ruler Moctezuma II reputedly greeted him as an emissary from the god. The Spaniards killed Moctezuma the following year. That's wild that the year that they predicted their god would return was the year that the Spanish arrived. That's pretty wild. I would say what a coincidence, but I feel like the Aztecs, they had some good prophets, I think. I think they had some actual people who knew what was going to happen at some points. Not just from an astronomical perspective, because they definitely had astronomy nailed. They knew all the eclipses and such. But yeah, that's pretty eerie, isn't it? Also, because I'm thinking about it, I didn't mention it, but I'm thinking about Ancient Aliens. I hate that show. If you watch Mini Minute Man, he just did a 2-part series watching one episode and losing his mind. It's awful. It's really just terrible. I'm talking about all my least favorite shows today. Ghost Adventures, Ancient Aliens. To me, Ancient Aliens is just mad disrespect to cultures like this, being like, oh, he was an alien. Clearly, he's from the planet Venus. Oh, like, no, like, you can't conflate mythology with conspiracy. Like, you just can't. Like, that's so disrespectful. Like, that would be like saying, like, Jesus or Muhammad was an alien. That is so disrespectful. I'm not saying that. No way am I saying that. But, like, saying that is taboo. But saying that the Aztec god was, that's fine, apparently. I'm not about that. Not about that. Watch that show for drinking purposes. Watch that show for fun. Do not take it seriously. Let's go to Northern Europe. See what this says. While Mediterranean cultures were warring to the south, Celtic and Germanic tribes spread through Central Europe. With the development of iron smelting in about 750 BCE, the Celts became experts in the technology. By 500 BCE, they had moved into Britain, where they thrived for centuries before falling to the Romans, who knew them as the Gauls. Christianity made inroads into Celtic culture as the Middle Ages began, and here we can see Skellig Michael. This is the graveyard of monks here. Skellig Michael you've seen in the fantastic film Star Wars The Last Jedi, an absolute masterpiece. I love that movie, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. Some of y'all hated it. You're wrong. That movie was great. But it was so cool to see Luke and Rey in Skellig Michael. Like, spent the whole movie like, how did they get to film in Skellig Michael? That's crazy. They actually did it. Because the movie before that, the cliffhanger ended at Skellig Michael, and I'm watching the movie like, is that Skellig Michael? So I'm like, oh cool, they did one little scene there, whatever. But then it was a whole, like, half the movie takes place on this island. If you don't know, Skellig Michael is like, you can't really visit it because everything is so delicate, because they don't want people trampling all over this and destroying it. So tours of Skellig Michael are not easy to come by. So the fact that they got to film a whole movie there is pretty wild. Especially Star Wars. Like, what? That's wild. I love Star Wars so much. But yeah, Skellig Michael's pretty cool for multiple reasons. Now it's on my Star Wars bucket list. Someday. First, I gotta hit up Tunisia for the Star Wars bucket list. I've already done the Redwoods, where the Ewoks live. Let's see, the Celtic Fringe. Once spread across the breadth of Europe, Celtic culture, created by a loosely knit group of aristocratic warrior tribes, had shrunk to the edges of the continent by the Middle Ages. Monuments to the glory days, like the 3,500-year-old ocean-defended fort of Dún Aengus in the Aran Islands of Ireland, fell into ruin. Nevertheless, in isolation and poverty, Celtic society survived. Some 2.5 million people still claim to speak a Celtic language. This quote says, the Gauls are tall of body, with rippling muscles and white of skin. That was Diodorus Siculus, a Greek historian. So let's see. Areas of Celtic culture are all in green. So starting at the bottom here, actually, we've got a bit in Portugal and Spain, Asturias and Galicia and Minho. Then we have Brittany up here. There's Breton, which we've already covered on the channel. We already covered Brittany. Then we have Cornwall down here. Cornish there. Here's beautiful Wales. Oh, this is the language they speak. Okay, so they speak Breton, they speak Cornish, they speak Welsh, they speak Scottish Gaelic, Irish Gaelic. They just speak Spanish and Portuguese down there, I think. Anyway, historical sites are shaped like that, but that's very hard to read against the green. We can see Dún Aengus there. Goodness, let me see. Iona up there. There's Lindisfarne, very famous for the Viking attack that destroyed it. There's, oh gosh, that is very Welsh. I'm not even going to try. There's Glastonbury. I've been there. I've been to Glastonbury. Love Glastonbury. And that place. And Llandavennic. And some down here in the Iberian, there's Numantia and Citana Briteros, which I probably mispronounced. We try to see the Irish ones up here. It's very hard to read amongst all the mountains. Hill of, oh, that's Tara. That's easy. That's Tara. That's like the biggest out of all of them. That's where the king is crowned and all of that. Clone McNoys, I think that says, and Glendalough. I think that's how you say that. There's also Croagh Patrick, and probably more. There's good old Stonehenge. Okay, that's all the ones I can see. What else do we have? Main concentration of Celtic speakers is dotted. Oh, I see. So you can see here in Brittany, this section here is all dotted. Let's see in Wales. Looks like just along the coast here. In Scotland, I don't really see any unless the Hebrides up here dotted. I can't really tell because they're so little. And then in Ireland, oh my gosh, it's hard to see. I don't see any dots at all. Oh, there's some up here in Northern Ireland. And along here, I see some dots. Is that some dots? There's some dots over here as well. All right, that was very hard to read. Lots of green mixed in. Here's Stonehenge. Good old Stonehenge. I love me Stonehenge. Early societies in Western Europe built no pyramids or ziggurats, but they did leave behind an impressive collection of megaliths, stone monuments still standing after thousands of years. The most famous of these, and one of the most enigmatic, is Stonehenge. This prehistoric structure just west of Amesbury, I almost said Avebury, Amesbury, England. That's near Avebury. Amesbury, England, began some 5,000 years ago as a circular ditch and raised bank. Within the next millennium, the builders had transported and raised 80 dolerite bluestones in an ark, then added an outer circle of 25-ton sandstone blocks. 5 trilithons, pairs of massive sarsen stones topped by stone lintels, were erected within. The megalith's purpose continues to be disputed. Fanciful ideas about a Druid meeting place have been debunked because Druids weren't around when Stonehenge was built. The structure aligns with the solstices, but otherwise has no obvious astronomical ties. Whatever its meaning, it was intended to inspire awe. If it was intended to inspire awe, it succeeds. Definitely does. Stonehenge rocks. Pun intended. Stonehenge is awesome. I don't think Stonehenge needs any more than that. I've talked extensively about Stonehenge. I did a whole History Magazine video reading a very long article about Stonehenge, and I told you guys all about my time there. The day I visited Stonehenge, it was a pretty crazy day. Let's read about Boudicca. Notables, Boudicca. Romans and Celts lived in uneasy partnership during much of the Roman occupation of Britain, but Rome learned the hard way not to press its luck. Around 60 CE, Prasutagus, king of the Celtic Iceni tribe, died and left half his kingdom to Rome and half to his wife Boudicca. You can see here, being epic. And their 2 daughters. The Romans ignored his wishes and seized his kingdom. Boudicca was flogged and her daughters R-worded. In retaliation, the red-haired warrior queen raised an army of 100,000. Boudicca, in a chariot with her 2 daughters before her, drove through the ranks, wrote Roman historian Tacitus. Boudicca's troops sacked several Roman-occupied cities, including Londinium, which today is London, and killed 80,000 Roman soldiers. Roman governor Suetonius then crushed the Iceni in a devastating battle. Boudicca died as well, possibly by poisoning herself. Urban lore maintains that she is buried between platforms 9 and 10 in King's Cross Station, London. Yeah, I've always wondered why there hasn't been a Boudicca movie. Maybe there is, and I just have not ever found it. But I feel like that would be like a Braveheart style epic, but for the girls, right? Let's see this map over here. It says invaders came and went over the centuries in early Britain. As the Romans departed in the early 5th century, Scotti and Picts, Celtic peoples, began to raid across Britain's borders from the north and west. To fight them back, the Britons enlisted the aid of Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, powerful Germanic tribes. Around 450 CE, the outsiders came, conquered, and dug in, carving out their own kingdoms from southern Scotland to the south of England. Some of the surviving Britons fled, others stayed on and were assimilated into Anglo-Saxon culture. So here you can see the Jutes from Denmark, from Jutland. The Angles here, Angleterre, Germany, and the Saxons. And here are the Britons, the Picts, the Scotti. And let's see, we've got the Jutes coming in to the south. Oh, I should be using this side. The Jutes coming in to the south. The Saxons coming in toward London. The Angles much more north, but to Scotland. And we have the Picts fleeing this way, the Scotti heading up here, down into Wales, down into Cornwall, and down into Brittany. Is that everybody? I was like, what's the Neth? That's the Netherlands. Goodness. Interesting. What does that say? Oh, it says Scandinavia. I think it does. Say, yes, okay. Let's move on to North America. Centuries before the arrival of Europeans, people in the Mississippi Valley and the desert southwest developed complex cultures. Advances in farming helped these complex societies thrive on a scale previously unknown in these regions. The cultivation of corn with beans, squash, and other crops gave the Mississippians relief from hunting and fishing. Thus settled, they could construct sprawling cities such as Etowah in Georgia, Moundville in Alabama, and Cahokia in Illinois, distinguished by great earthen mounds. Ohio's Great Serpent Mound, which is over here, my favorite of all the mounds, Cahokia is close second, may date as far back as 321 BCE to the Adena culture. In today's Four Corners area, which shows up there, the ancestral Puebloans lived for hundreds of years in elaborate cliffside dwellings and multi-story adobe apartments. So yeah, this doesn't show the Four Corners, but it is this area. It looks like this. It's beautiful, all rugged and rocky and all of that. Pretty neat. We covered it when we talked about Arizona. We talked about Moundville when we did Alabama. But yes, Serpent Mound is the best one because it's a giant snake. And you can only really tell, I guess you could tell from the ground, but you can really see it from above. It's got the curled tail and the big head and everything. It's great. It's super cool. Cahokia is great in that it's massive, huge area that had a huge population at the site. I wonder if it'll talk about it on the next page. I do not know. But yeah, the mound sites are pretty awesome. What do we have here? Oh, it's Pueblo Bonito in Chaco Canyon. Let's talk about the Puebloans. Let's see. Ancestors of today's Puebloan peoples, known as ancestral Puebloans, were city dwellers whose buildings rivaled those of today's Manhattan. By the 11th century, at least 5,000 people lived in large multi-story dwellings such as Pueblo Bonito, which is here in New Mexico's Chaco Canyon. This symmetrical great house contained some 600 rooms laid out around a plaza where people gathered for ceremonies in subterranean chambers called kivas. A network of roads linked Pueblo Bonito and nearby structures to outlying settlements, suggesting that this was the hub of a well-organized society with strong leadership. Buildings and rock paintings were aligned to catch the sun's rays and highlight equinoxes, solstices, and other astronomical events. After 1200, Chaco Canyon declined as a center of ancestral Puebloan culture, likely as a result of prolonged drought. Most survivors settled in villages, or pueblos in Spanish, where many of their descendants remain. It's another quote. It says, "At each of these places there are groups of mounds, and at each there probably once existed a city." So true. This looks like Cahokia. Yep, Cahokia. There's a box down here. But first, let's look at Pueblo Bonito over here. It's kind of hard to tell what I'm looking at and how zoomed out we are. Well, there's stairs, so we were very zoomed out. So these are the kivas, which, like it said, they were like meeting areas. People would hang out in them. You can see the remnants of the multi-story buildings here as well. Building layouts there, what's left of them. But yeah, I can clearly see the kivas. Interesting. Look at all the rubble there. It's probably amazing at its height. Cahokia. Starting around 800 CE, many agricultural communities sprang up along the Mississippi and in other river valleys across the southeast and Midwest. Although Cahokia was by far the largest, other settlements had similar features, including platform mounds, plazas, and stockades. By 1050 CE, Cahokia was home to thousands of people in houses scattered around a vast plaza. Lacking a written language, their culture is still largely a mystery. So here's a map here. All the orange is the area of influence of the Mississippian culture. You can see all throughout here, of course named after the river, the Mississippi River flowing through here. You can see so many different settlements along it, including Cahokia. I'm sure all the others follow rivers as well. Look at how like arched they are, right? Surely they follow rivers as well. It doesn't label any of the others except for Cahokia right there. Look at all these in succession there along the river. So here's what Cahokia would have looked like. So here's Monk's Mound, the biggest of all of the mounds they made. You can see the others around here. I think they believed that the chieftain or whoever was in charge lived on top of Monk's Mound. You can see the creek over here. Looks like they have built a big wall. And you can see all of the little settlements around. It's Mound 72, burrow pit area where earth was extracted to build the mounds. There's Woodhenge. Another creek over here. Grand Plaza. You can see all the little homes around the mounds. And on the outside, all over, these big pits here. Interesting. So cool. That would be a fun place to visit someday. I've been to Illinois, but not near there. I've been to Chicago. Let's head over to West Africa, and I think this is the last place we're going tonight, if I remember correctly. We'll find out. By the Middle Ages, several wealthy kingdoms had arisen in West Africa. Trans-Saharan trade routes created opportunities for any leader strong enough to control the supply of gold and other assets that Muslim merchants sought. One such magnate was the ambitious Prince Sundiata, who in the 13th century founded the Mali Empire, which included such commercial hubs as Djenné and Timbuktu. What it says here is Djenné's Grand Mosque down here. Wait. No, it's not. Below. What? Timbuktu, below Djenné's Grand Mosque. Oh, I see, there's a semicolon. So this is the Djenné Mosque. I was about to say, it looks like Djenné Mosque. Opposite is a Djenné figure in iron and bronze. We'll look at that in a second. After Amazigh invaders took over Timbuktu in the 1400s, the inhabitants called on Sunni Ali, founder of the Songhai Empire, who ousted the Amazigh and gained control of the area's riches. The Songhai people prospered until Moroccan forces and their guns defeated them in 1591. So yeah, the Great Mosque of Djenné is like one of the most spectacular buildings. So you can see that this is all made of mud, dried, cooked, baked mud, right? Baked in the sun. And it has all of these little poles sticking out. And they kind of work like a telephone pole. Like, you know how there's little sticks or whatever coming out of telephone poles so that people could climb the telephone pole. This is the same way. This is so people could climb up and make repairs to the mud, climb back down safely. But it looks gorgeous. It's so pretty. The prettiest little sticks in the mud you could find anywhere in the world. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And then over here, look at this guy. Holy moly. He's got his little head there. What does it say it's made out of? Iron and bronze. Goodness. His long leg, long arms, and long silly legs. He's walking somewhere. He's got a long body. What an interesting shape. I wonder if this is supposed to be a scarf or something. What is that? He's got a top knot. What does this quote say? In the same way as light precedes the sun, so the glory of Sundiata, overleaping the mountains, shed itself on all the Niger plain. That's from the Epic of Sundiata, an oral tradition from Mali. Very cool little guy there. We've got a map. I love maps. Desert Nexus. The Mali Empire and its successor, the Songhai Empire, achieved greatness in a resource-rich land crisscrossed by trading routes. Founded as a seasonal camp by Tuareg herders, Timbuktu grew into a thriving trading hub. So here you can see Africa, and there's Timbuktu. We're looking at this area here. There's good old Timbuktu. Let's see what this says. 600 desert caravans link Mediterranean with African interior. By 800. Oh, there's the key up here. Hold on. Let me look at that first before we look at this timeline. The Mali Empire's in gold, so we can see along the Senegal. Over here, it looks like in Niani. Over here, and I guess what looks like Ghana. And then down here along the Comoé. I really thought the Mali Empire was a lot bigger. Surely it included Timbuktu. I thought Timbuktu was the capital of the Mali Empire. There's Janae. Interesting. It says the Songhai is in this gray. Well, this here, I don't understand this map. No, it's not. Those are mining areas. Okay, hold on. All right, I see it now. You can calm down. Don't comment. I get it now. See, this is what happens when I don't look at it beforehand. This is the Mali Empire. All this here. That makes far more sense. And then this is the Songhai Empire. All throughout here. Now it makes sense. And it overlaps there. That's why it looks so discolored. This gold is down here. Those are gold mining areas. Now it makes sense why they're around the rivers. Goodness. And then trade routes are little dots. You can see them in white. Up here to Fez in Morocco. I think this way as well. Going up here to Ijil, looks like. Down here to Niani, probably to get some gold. Down to Janae. Down all the way to Elmina. That way as well. There's Gao, heading down the Niger. And then this way goes to Cairo. That's a long trade route. All right, now let's look at this timeline. It's 600 desert caravans link Mediterranean with African interior. 800 Arab merchants bring Islam to North Africa. 1100 Timbuktu founded by Tuareg nomads. 1324 Emperor Musa travels to Mecca and orders a mosque in Timbuktu. Looks like we're going to talk about that over here. 1500 scholarship and trade flourish under the Songhai Empire. In 1591 Moroccans invade and deport scholars. We've got the Janae terracottas. West African communities had a rich artistic tradition. Weavers, sculptors, and griots, oral historians / musicians, were honored and organized into guilds. This heritage is visible today in a number of terracotta figurines found at the site of Janae, one of Mali's major cities. The expressive sculptures give us insight into Malian society from the 13th to 15th centuries. Figures of archers and horsemen, for instance, tell us that Mali had a well-equipped and well-funded army. Other sculptures show that the Malians enjoyed a wide range of body ornamentation, such as on the female figure we'll see in a bit. Some beleaguered characters cover their heads in apparent sadness or seem to be pocked with the marks of a smallpox-like illness. So what are we looking for? Ornamentations. I really don't see any. I see it looks like they have facial scars or beauty scars that they still do today in this part of the world. Oh, I guess there's like a little another scarf thing there. And then maybe something on her head. I think. Anyway, it is very beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's just I don't really see what they mean by ornamentation. I looked in the around her neck and on her head. I guess so. It is gorgeous though, isn't it? Let's talk about Mansa Musa. One of the absolute bros of history. Just one of the guys of the history books. We got a couple of just actual alpha males, and Mansa Musa was one of them. In 1324, Malian Emperor Sundiata's grand-nephew Mansa Musa, which you can see here, holding a gold coin, very important, embarked on a celebrated pilgrimage to Mecca that focused attention on the country, its emperor, and how wealthy they had become. Musa's brilliant procession included 80 camels and some 12,000 silk-clad enslaved people carrying hundreds of pounds of gold, which the emperor and his attendants spent so freely in Cairo that they devalued the precious metal there for years to come. Merchants from Mali brought enslaved black captives to North Africa and beyond, taking on white enslaved people in return, and Musa returned to Mali with Turkish pages bought for him in Cairo. The emperor also purchased Arab horses for his army and lured scholars from the Arab world to Timbuktu, which had mosques, a university, and an Arabic library that Musa brought back from Mecca. So yeah, this is from a Spanish map, so it's much, much bigger. But on the area that shows West Africa, you can see a big Mansa Musa holding his gold. Looks like famous buildings of the time around it as well. This is like the only depiction of Mansa Musa, so this always comes up whenever he's mentioned in history books and such. And that is the end. That was the end. I thought I was going to talk about the knock because it was mentioned in the foreword there, but oh well. It says, Milky stars, winter stars, and the Milky Way. I guess Milky stars over an ancient Persian bas-relief in Nashkirachab, Persepolis, and Fars in Iran. See the figurines there. Good old Persepolis. It got burned down by Alexander the Great. He burned it to the ground. And in the excavations there, you know, they've dug out what they can, and they just found like a layer of ash. And then digging past that, getting all of the old stuff. So, like the ash from that fire is still there, just buried under the sand. So that was the Atlas of the Ancient World. This was a great magazine, wasn't it? Some of the maps were not great. Some were okay. Some were really neat. I enjoyed this book a lot. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to have a way, way better book coming, I promise. I'm so excited to get it. So look forward to that next month. But thank you so much. If you have seen every video from this magazine, or at least like more than one, let me know. Let me know which one was your favorite. I really liked this last one. That was fun to just do all of them. How long? This video is an hour long. Worth it. It would have been what, like, let's say each one was 20 minutes. So yeah, one video, 2 video, 3 video, 4, 5. So this would have been 5 videos, 5 short, like 15-minute videos, right? yeah, I'd rather not. I'd rather just do one big one. That was fun. I'll stop yapping. Thank you for watching. So if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, because like I said, more is coming. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up as well. If you're still awake, hit that thumbs up. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good night. Good night. Good night.